This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
All right, I will call the meeting to order for March 17th, 2026. Happy St. Patrick's Day, everyone. And let's do a roll call. Tom Brown is excused. Patrick? Yes. Leslie? Here. Catherine? Here. Crystal? Here. Marie? Here. Deborah? Here. And Kathy. And we have a couple of guests in the room. You are?
Erin O'Brien Walcott.
Erin Walcott.
And Cresco.
Cresco? I'm sorry?
Evan LeBeau.
Evan, thank you.
And then online, Molly Montgomery and Mary McCarthy.
Very good. Full house today. All right, we'll move to the second agenda item, the acceptance of the minutes. Any questions, comments, or corrections to the minutes? Second to pull those up. We have a motion to approve the minutes. Marie, second. Crystal? Any comments, corrections? All in favor of approving the minutes, please raise your
Aye.
hand.
Aye.
Unanimously approved. Okay, well, next agenda item is public speak, and it's been a while since we've had a guest here, so I would like to remind everyone that the speaker has 2 minutes to make their comments. Comments should pertain to non-agenda items. Board members may not respond to public speakers' comments, and we'll take their comments forward. So please identify yourself and the city of residence, your comment topic, and if you're representing a group. The floor is now yours.
Do you want me to stand?
That might be easier to hear if you don't mind. Thank you.
Erin O'Brien Walcott. I live at Sunrise on Clark Street. And I'm here to complain about your director, who I have gotten nothing but abuse from. I have gone into the center. I've used the vehicles to go over to Hadley for a trip. Never had a problem. But I went in during an open house with a neighbor. I walked up and said hi to her, where she went up one side of me and down the other, that my neighbor came up, poked me in the back and said, let's go. And she's never gone back to the senior center. And this is how I keep on getting treated. I was in there a week ago because I have a ceramic I was going to donate to the center for their craft room. She opened her door, this much, same thing, leave. And I left. And this is how I've been treated by your director. Just so you know, I have a associate's degree in recreation leadership. I have a bachelor's in business administration, and I'm a former HR manager. And there isn't a state law, federal law I do not know, and I served on other boards as well. In Northampton, I served on their reevaluation for all their city positions with Claire Higgins. And I served on other boards as well, just as my parents did. And that is why I'm here now. And if you want to know why seniors are not joining the Easthampton Senior Center, it's because of the director and how she treats us. I am a member in Northampton, where I'm going to teach seniors how to use computers, because I did that with my employees when we had to go to a computer-based system. And that's why I'm here, because I'm tired of being treated rudely by the director. And that's all I have to say.
All right. Thank you for your comments and coming in person.
And it's not going to change until she changes her attitude, because that's why you've lost members as well.
Are there any other public speak? All right, we'll move on to the next agenda item. We're honored to have with us today the president of Easthampton Neighbors, Mary McCarthy, that will provide us some initial information and to begin discussion on how we can collaborate moving forward, Easthampton Council on Aging and Easthampton Neighbors. Mary, thank you.
Yes, it's all muted up there.
Here, let me see if I can, I can't unmute her.
Not even here.
She has to unmute herself.
There's some, the mic is got a null sign on it.
Yeah.
Can you go up to the top where it says people and it's all muted in blue? And
There we go.
Yeah.
It's harder to do this on my phone than on my computer. I got it though. I hope. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here, and I'll keep it short because I know how board meetings are. And the goal of this is just to open up further communications and opportunities to collaborate. The Easthampton Neighbors, we have 340 active members, 65 volunteers, and the majority of our service calls for 2025 was for transportation. And Cynthia and I have been talking about how the Council on Aging is actually in a better position to help with transportation issues, especially during the day. So I'm looking forward to building that collaboration. And then our next two big things are technology requests and Pioneer Valley Memory Care Initiative visits. And so Easthampton Neighbors were focusing on really expanding our visibility in the community. And it just makes so much sense to have a really good working relationship with the Council on Aging. And I actually have some questions being this is my first year as president, trying to figure out how do we reach the people who need our services the most but might be the hardest ones to reach. And was curious if ever there was a way for the city to help us identify when somebody's 55 years and older is it possible for an automatic sign up or some kind of a notification so information can be sent to people just to let them know that the services exist for them and are free. It's free to join. And also with regards to partnering up, Jody, our administrative assistant, she would love to come to the center, even if it's just once a month for a few hours, just to help spread the word about Easthampton Neighbors, answer any questions any of the volunteers or staff at Council on Aging might have. So we're just really looking to strengthen our connection. And I think that pretty much covers everything for this initial introduction. And I'm welcome to any questions you might have for me as well.
I have one question. My name's Mary.
Hi, Marie.
Would any of your volunteers be interested in formally declaring themselves as companion drivers for the Easthampton community? Doing it in a very structured way.
Oh, you mean with the Council on Aging?
Yeah, I mean, we're
Possibly.
always looking for companion drivers, and somebody might be available just Monday afternoons, but that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that we could put out to our volunteers. And a lot of our members are also volunteers. So I feel like, yeah, let's ask them.
That's kind of an easy segue, that a bridge that we could work with.
Yeah, I love that.
I have a question.
Crystal.
Hi, Mary. My name's Crystal. I'm a pretty, I would say, young member of the senior center, but I am very interested in kind of paying it forward. So what the services that I'm going to need in the future, helping to provide them now. So I'd also like to volunteer for Easthampton Neighbors. I was a volunteer in Northampton when I was working in Northampton, but I'm not any longer. So I'm interested in joining Easthampton Neighbors, and I'd also be interested in helping you to market and do volunteer recruitment, because those are two of my specialties. And I have a lot of friends who are in like the 50 to 58 range who I think would also like to volunteer and be a part of Easthampton Neighbors, because again, our parents are utilizing services from the senior center.
Mm-hmm.
We are the next generation that's going to be utilizing services from the senior center. So I'm very interested in partnering with you.
I love everything you just said, and I'm right there with you. I'm 58, and so I forced myself to sign up, as a member. I started out as a volunteer, and I see it the same way. It's like a pay it forward. I don't need it now, but at some point I'm gonna need that community. And that brings up a really interesting point too, is that it's Gen X. I feel like there's a stigma attached to belonging to an organization that caters to the needs of quote unquote elderly. Because if you're in your 50s, you're not necessarily feeling old, but yet you qualify for certain services. And so yes, I would love to invite you to one of our next event committee meetings, because we talk about all of this, and we are actually working on marketing strategies for appealing to the younger side of elderly. I don't even like the word elderly, because it doesn't feel like it fits today's, like we need a new word.
Well, Mary, sorry,
Cynthia.
we use older adults now. That's
Older
just-
adults,
we just-
okay.
50 plus, it's like you're an older adult. I mean, you're also middle-aged, but it's like,
Ouch.
how are we going to parse this? Are we going to say older, middle-aged, So whatever term works for people is how
Yeah.
I look at it. Like if somebody comes to me and says, it's a senior center, it is not an older adult center. Well, in this town and that town, and people use it differently. But I was going to ask you, so can you tell us how many of your current volunteers are not your board, but your volunteers that are doing the work of being with people one-to-one? How many of them are still working? And to what extent is their time confined to after work time to be companionate with people?
So the volunteers that we have that can accommodate for daytime needs are all retired. And then we have a good part of our volunteer base where they can really only do things on evenings and weekends. So it's kind of and that's something that we're looking at as well, is that's probably been our number one challenge, is getting the daytime transportation requests handled.
So if I could continue on that for just a minute. So with transportation, you might think, well, the COA and PVTA can take care of it all through the day, and PVTA goes much later into the day than the senior center does. But the senior center transportation, the last in-town appointment is 2 p.m. and the last out-of-town appointment is 1:30. And even if we have the capacity, at least on some days where you'd think, well, why not have the last appointment be at 3? You'll catch that many more people who can go to the doctor. The problem is that you can't just put a driver on. You have to have dispatch on. And we are much lower staffed later in the afternoon. It kind of mushrooms to cost a little more. I'm not saying it's impossible. And hopefully if the city's budget is okay for FY28, where we could go and ask for more hours if the need is there. But because PVTA is free, we know for sure their numbers are up. And we also looked at, should we be free or cheaper for transportation? And for now, we're going to hold where we are because you never know when we're going to need repairs, and that goes into that repair fund. But in terms of Easthampton neighbors, there's still a lot of room, I think, between with the time of day that we end and then where we go, because there's so many places we don't go. We don't go to Greenfield, we don't go across the river, and we don't go to Springfield. PVTA does to some extent. So, but if you aren't finding, I don't know how many requests you're getting, but if you're getting requests that are outside our service area or outside our service times versus you're getting requests that are definitely within our times, that's what we mean that, we welcome more referrals during our current hours. And then the other thing is there's certain things that people need that we don't do that would be low priority for PVTA, I think, such as Saturday farmers market. So unless we have a volunteer or senior talks work off to do that, we don't do it. And it might be hard to get it through PVTA. So that's one of the things we could do is just communicate with Jody, periodically. Here's what we can satisfy and here's what we can't, in case you need to triage what you can and can't do. And then the other thing is we are door to door. So if somebody actually needs physical help to get from the van at Valley Medical at the curb all the way into the building and have somebody go in with them, we don't do that. And so, but if you have people who really want to do that as their volunteer job and you're comfortable with that and they're comfortable with the confidentiality of that and all of that, we potentially could drive people there, so we could drive your volunteer and our person so that they can use the ADA van. And then once they get to Valley Medical, your person could go all the way in with them, maybe not all the way into the exam room because of HIPAA. So these are just some creative things that we could do to stitch ourselves together a little bit, but we have to coordinate, so.
It would definitely be beneficial to bring Jody in because she has the direct contact with the members and the volunteers. So she kind of has a really good sense of who does what. And so I just made a note of that to reach out. So for the sake of not taking up too much time here in the meeting, who can I connect Jody with at Council on Aging to kind of continue that conversation?
Yeah, with me, and then I would bring in our transportation coordination people when it makes sense.
Okay, so I'll do an email that connects us all, and then we can take that from there. Because it sounds like the transportation is like a good start point for collaborative efforts.
We used to have drivers in common, and I think some of those people have retired from driving for us. I'm not sure if we have any more drivers in common.
Yeah, it would be interesting to know what the crossover is. Easthampton neighbors who are also members of the Council on Aging, the senior center, and vice versa. That's just a thought that came to.
But Mary, about your idea of everybody 55 plus that's on the city census automatically being signed up for a nonprofit, I'm sure the city couldn't do that. But what we could do is something like, since, we're in a partnership, is like once a year or every quarter or something, put something in the newsletter that says, did you know? And, while we can't do that for every single nonprofit in the community, as long as we're partnering with a nonprofit, we're happy to, give space over in the newsletter when we can. And then we can do longer form in the email newsletter where we go into more.
Same. Yeah, we can cross-reference in our newsletter as well. I like that idea. And we actually just applied for, and I think we are receiving a grant to do a citywide mailing of 55 and over adults in Easthampton. So maybe that's something we could even, it's like if you mention one, it benefits the person to mention both. So maybe we can incorporate Council on Aging on that postcard, just so people start to recognize that, oh, it doesn't have to be one or the other, that it's actually beneficial to belong to both organizations. And because you guys got way cooler events than what we can do. So we share your events a lot.
That's a really generous offer, Mary.
And I've got, our monthly board meeting is coming up this Thursday. Is there anything specific? I'll definitely talk about the transportation piece, but is there anything you would like me to convey to the Easthampton Neighbors Board of Directors?
Marie, you had a question.
I guess it is a question, it's related. So in terms of putting something in the newsletter to alert upcoming 55 plus residents to join, we always have had great turnout when we do coffee hours with donuts or some kind of a luncheon thing, a social hour, of having quarterly a dedicated sign-up day at the center. So we're tying it into a social event with an emphasis on signing up new members to the center, or in conjunction with Easthampton Neighbors, having it a dual purpose.
I love that. Yeah, because we don't have a brick and mortar place where, we operate out of our home offices. That would be great. I know Jody would love to participate in that. Okay. Perfect.
And lastly, just so people know, so we started a solo ager coffee hour that became very popular, and we have to decide what are we as the senior center going to do for programming for that population. And Mary and I explored, what if Easthampton Neighbors had a solo agers program that we hosted as opposed to us leading. And so where it sits right now is that the program manager, Dawn, has been getting training and also leading these groups. And then Ashley, the outreach worker, is also working on that whole, there's a navigating solo website and group. And so what we're trying to do is figure out, what do we have the capacity to do ourselves? And if we decide, actually, we don't have the capacity to do everything that group wants, then we might work up like sort of almost like a request for proposal. Like, here's a need. People have said there's a need. They want these kind of presenters. They want these kind of activities. Who could do it? But whoever did it would have to really take it on. And we would just be the facility and maybe contribute in kind to refreshments and that kind of thing. So that's what we're trying to decide right now. So we haven't said to Easthampton Neighbors, would you guys totally take this over? Because we're still deciding if we're going to do it. So just wanted to put that out there, and I'll report back. I'm sure now we're over time.
Yeah.
Mary, thank you for coming. I hope you got some information. I know we did. And so
Yeah.
I think it's beneficial for all of us. We thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. I really appreciate it.
Look forward to working.
Thank you, Mary. Thanks for all the great communication.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Bye now. Okay, we'll move on to the director's report. Cindy?
Okay, let me just switch videos.
Oh, I'll take one. Yeah, it's my blood sugar. I'm having issues with low blood sugar, so keep the sugar on board.
Okay, so let me figure that it's always tricky. Okay, so everybody can now see. So copies, and we will put in the minutes going out, we will put this attachment didn't go out with the agenda, so we will put it
So what we're doing now is just spending a couple of minutes on what we presented to, here's a copy pad if you want, what we, the department, presented to the mayor for our budget request for the next fiscal year starting July 1st. This is not the mayor's budget. The mayor, so the way the process works is that the mayor requests that the department prepare a budget according to the instructions that the mayor sends out. Like, are you gonna do a cut? Are you gonna do level services? This year it's a level services, which means that your budget can increase according to the contracted responsibility you have to the staff, where there would be increases. So what I did was I prepared the budget that is going, that's the general fund, so the taxpayer dollars. And then I also prepared, because if you recall, when I first started here, we didn't have one, a budget, that's all of our other expenses. And later, another time, like we do, we'll go over revenue. This is just expenses, okay? And so we had our presentation with the mayor. The mayor's now heard from all of the departments. And then in April, like towards the end of April, is when the mayor puts out the budget book that's accessible to the public, that's going to city council. So this could change if the mayor wants to make cuts or increases. But and this is just a 5-minute agenda item because there really isn't anything to discuss right now. If the mayor makes cuts or an increase or something, then I'll be coming back to you. Hopefully I'll have that information, I'll come back to you and I'll say, board, this is a situation. So we're gonna need to talk about how we're gonna make up for that. So, and as you know, once it goes to city council can cut but not increase. Okay, so let me just embiggen this. So as you know, almost all of our budget is staffing when it comes to taxpayer dollars from the city. So as you can see here, this is line item by line item of the type of staff, not the individual staff. And then, so that is 296,000 and change for staffing. If you're only including the general fund. As you know, then over here all the way on the right, this 37,625.51, that's the money we're gonna take from the state taxpayer dollar formula grant to pay the rest of the staffing. And then below the green line is just a tiny bit of money for mileage. We'll put more money into mileage from our other revenue, and a tiny bit of money for just things where we say, oh my God, an air conditioner broke and DPW says they don't have the money for it. And so Mayor LaChapelle had put in this little placeholder for things like that, for small equipment and that sort of thing. Or like the electrician to come and do something quick for us. So, and then as you see, the actual column H is not, it's the update that they did when they created the template. So it doesn't reflect where we are right now in terms of spending on March 18th. That could be from, I don't know when that was from. By now, more than halfway through the year. And then, so you can see going back to 2024, we were at 277.5 and change, and 2023, 200,000. So you can see how our budget has grown, and it's grown even though that second outreach worker we had at 18 hours a week is gone, that those monies got put into the activity coordinator that we brought back from the old days when we had more program people. And we also helped pay for that from the formula grant. And then just contracted increases for the union staff and the pay plan staff. So that increase is not due to a huge more number of staff. Okay.
And as you know, benefits come out of HR, they don't come out of here, so that's not in here. Okay. So now we're gonna switch over to the other page, which is the non-general fund. And let me see if I can make this bigger. And what you're looking at there is, you're looking for three things. You're looking at what we budgeted this year versus next year, where it's coming from, which revenue source, and then who else in the city helps pay for the Council on Aging expenses. Not an amount, because I don't have those amounts. So as you can see with staffing, which is the first 4 lines, oops. Sorry, I keep clicking in and I don't want to be clicked in. But anyway, that comes from the formula grant, like I said, and the rest comes from the general fund. And then I want to just call your attention real quick and then tell me when I have to stop talking, Kathy. The part-time van drivers, last year we didn't put anything in there from the formula grant. We didn't have a need. This year, what we're seeing is that people are having trouble getting to our afternoon activities and programs. They're having trouble getting home because if we have something that goes till 3:30 or 5. So what I've done there is I have said another 3 hours a week or so, maybe up to 5, depending on how we're doing. We could bring on a driver to bring people home in the afternoon from things, but it's so variable. You can't easily budget for it because like a whole class, everybody could be driving themselves. And then another one, you know, a third of them might need a ride. So, you know, we're trying to just make some more room for people to, you know, but again, this is very different from saying anybody can make a medical appointment until 4 or 5 p.m. because that we're not set up for. Not ruling it out for the future though. Okay, and then a big point is that the extremely popular Tai Chi instructor has retired. And so if and when we can find somebody, that could cost more or less. If it's the Y, it would be half the price. If it was another private instructor, it could be more. We for sure am going to bring back some kind of cardio class because we haven't had one in a long time. That Y hasn't had anybody to send us. So what we've done for now to satisfy the Tai Chi folks is they're doing a peer class, peer-to-peer practice. And then, so we might actually, when you get down there to that row 7 professional services, that's where the instructors are, and that's all coming out of the formula grant. 18,000 might be too much if it is all satisfied by the Y. The Y charges $35 a class. And for example, the Tai Chi instructor was $70, which is more market rate, or I don't know, Crystal, you might know, like the true market rate.
Yeah, I have somebody that does a class every single day for $75. It's like an hour class. And he does more of like it's both sitting and standing cardio, but he's interested in picking up more clients because he's now retired. So I can give you his information.
Send him our way. We love the Y because then people have their liability insurance and they're vetted and all of that. But there are independent contractors who are great too. So that, and then just the last part is, so down here at the bottom is where you see, so if you recall back here on the general fund, the total budget we're asking for is $297,533. And then for the non-general funds, I'm looking at just over $113,000, which would come from, first of all, the formula grant, and that's like slightly more money than the actual formula grant, but we have the money because it's a 10-year grant, so we have money that comes from last year. We still have that Highland Valley Elder Services grant that pays for the volunteer and senior tax work off mileage to do the driving, and we have enough to go for a few more years, and then the donations that we collect for the classes, that's that $24,500, and then the donations that people make either directly to the van program or for their ride fee. That we probably won't need that $6,000 because the vehicles are all in such incredible new shape still, but you know, just in case. So that is it for what we presented to the mayor. And really the last piece that you have on your sheet is the organizational chart, which has not changed. It's really simple. The director is everybody's boss. I won't take questions because I think I'm over
I
time.
was just gonna say, in the essence of time, if you have questions, please direct those directly to.
To me, and if you wish to advocate for the COA when it comes to finance committee time, when the budget has gone out to city council now, it's good to have one person come to that. So awesome, because Tom has done it in the past. It would be great to have you. Terrific.
Can you just send me the date?
Yeah, when we get the date, I will send you, and I want to say, I forget who the new chair is of FinCom, but I'll find out.
Okay.
Tom Peak is the, okay, so we are now going to go to the
The
next.
old business, the new senior center, and anyone from the committee here that wants to report out on, I think,
Sure, so I'll
process
report
of
out.
elimination.
Yep, it's me. So there are two things of primary importance that the building committee discussed last time we met on January 9th. The first was a site for a new senior center. And after some discussion, the committee unanimously agreed, of everything that was under consideration. There's one parcel that was still sort of in question, that the Park Street site was the top site for the building committee itself. So there's that. The other thing we talked about, the director of procurement attended the meeting with the purpose of going through the process of creating a request for proposal, an RFP, for a feasibility study for moving forward with a new senior center building committee. That's where we kind of left things, is, he was going to meet with a couple of people on what steps needed to be taken to create an RFP, understanding that funding would need to be, allocated for an actual feasibility study. So that's pretty much the update. I think it was our expectation is that's the direction things were going to move in. So I'm not sure there's anything more I can add to that. We meet again at the end of the month, so.
March 30th.
March
Yeah. We sent
30th.
that information
Yep.
out on the time and the date. Yep. Place. Okay. Which is a nice segue into the next topic. We sent out with the agenda, Cindy sent out Mayor Salem Derby's proposal for a senior center / recreation center or complex. And so it has not been presented yet to the senior center building committee. And maybe it will in March, who knows. But anyways, it is now, it's public, it's out here, and I hope people had an opportunity to look at it. I reviewed it on a couple of occasions. I did a quick review, and then I did another review, very lengthy, this weekend, and compared it with a couple of other documents, our building committee, ad hoc committee report, and then the feasibility, wasn't it feasibility? From November 2022, some of those recommendations. I guess I'll kick off with starting, my first thought was when I saw this was, wow, where did it come from? And I know it came from the mayor, but was there input from other people? When I look at it, and I look specifically at the senior center and the gymnasium, having been a physical educator myself and understanding recreation needs and so forth. It was interesting to look at, and I do have quite a few concerns and thoughts and things that are nice about it, but then some concerns on the project itself. And I know the title or the front page, the cover page, says it's a feasibility study and a program plan, and I'm not sure that's really a feasibility study. You usually hire someone with expertise to do a feasibility study. And then a program plan, I don't know that there's a lot of programming in this particular document, other than really just talking about the complex itself. some good insight for me was, you know, the whole process of voter, how the process works to get something approved, which I was not really privy to in the past. I'm used to being on college campuses and understanding when I built my facilities at Springfield, what was involved, because I was, you know, a very key person there. So anyways, this was interesting from a city standpoint. So I guess at this point, I will open it up and certainly interject some, you know, some of my comments more specifically. Marie.
I had a question on the page for the senior center wings.
Can you give me the page number and I'll put it up?
It's 3.1, program philosophy,
Section 3.
that is, you know, delineated actual rooms, let's call it. Dining, social lounge,
Okay,
commercial kitchen.
so
So
let
that's
me,
3.1.
I think this one here.
there we go.
Yeah.
So Kathy, just like your questions, I wondered, where did each of these individual spaces, especially the specificity of the square footage, come from? And I don't know if it came from a building committee meeting at some point, or it was just, where is this from? Is it from another comparable senior center, like I would assume like an East Long Meadow or what have you, wherever it might be. So I have lots of questions, I guess.
So I went to the mayor's meeting a couple weeks ago, and he said that in his meeting that he had visited the Long Meadow Senior Center, and he had also visited a multi-purpose location out in the Boston area that was both a rec and senior center. And he also referred to Long Meadow as being both a rec and senior center. And he said that he was basing his information off of his research and named those two senior centers.
So he did go and see
He did.
a couple of them.
Yeah, he went out to one in the Boston area that is both a recreation and senior center, and he went to Long Meadow. And I recommended a couple other locations for him to visit.
Kind of helped to know which suburb he went to, because there would be a huge difference between a Millis and a Dover.
Right, he said he just mentioned the Boston area when I asked the question at the
The
meeting.
tax bases. And
So I looked at the Marshfield Senior Center and said, whoa,
Yeah.
that was something. I don't know if you looked at it or not, but that was in reference, one of his case study examples.
And I did forward him the senior center that you sent me, the one that was a recreation center and
Can't remember which one.
from a different state. It was like a colossal, like,
Oh, Alice Sessions had sent that.
yeah. So I sent that to him as like, if we had a magic wand.
that's not the West Hartford site that's here, then. This
No.
is separate from
Yeah.
what's listed. Okay.
Cindy?
So I just want to report back as a senior center building committee member, the senior center building committee senior center building committee, and also the ad hoc committee, correct me if I am wrong, did not put any square footage onto anything. It more talked about what are the types of spaces and delineations between spaces that we would need, figuring that the purpose of meeting with the architect in the feasibility study is where they interview the staff, they interview the public, they interview the members, they interview the stakeholders about what are the functions you need and then what size space. And that, you know, so when we had the feasibility study of the current senior center, the architects met with us about, you know, what are you using each space for? Okay, if we could make it better, here's how much space we could squeeze out for these different functions. Like that hasn't happened. And then secondly, the types of spaces listed in here, like for example, computer lab, nobody has ever said we want a computer lab or a tech room. And also, this has no input about our, you know, with respect to the mayor, about what are our current functions. So it doesn't list transportation at all. So there's no workspace for the drivers, which is a dream that we have, like where they actually have storage and a workspace. There isn't clarity around how much of the fitness activities would have to be
on the rec side versus on the senior center side, because if you have a class for, say, we said in the ad hoc meetings, some classes might still be at 20, 25 because the teacher wants it that way, but some classes you might want 50, and then you have to have like a hearing aid compliant room and all of that. Can you achieve that in a gymnasium room as opposed to, the kind of classrooms like they have in Hadley and Ludlow and wherever for exercise? So that wasn't clear. There's no staff. You have to have, I think legally, a staff kitchen and break room space. If you're gonna have a commercial kitchen, the staff can't be in there making their lunch. So that wasn't clear whether that would be shared with parks. Another feature of this plan is that you would share reception, but each department has their own needs for triage, check-in, reception, and that kind of thing. So that, obviously has to be iterated out. But those are just examples to show you that this is generic. It's not, or it might be based on specific centers, but it isn't something the COA as a department or the senior center building committee or the ad hoc committee identified fully as the spaces we would need. So I'm saying, I think most of you know that. I'm just saying for the public that is now seeing this plan, this isn't like a COA wish list, so to speak.
It's another thing, so along with the computer lab, I think that's redundant with what the library is offering, but that could also become a quiet room, or something. But then also storage was my other big major thing, that they have the storage at the bottom here, maybe a separate storage, but there's such a need for storage within each room for the supplies and so forth. But Leslie?
So since I was both on the ad hoc committee and I did site visits of 4 places, and I'm now on the building committee, I have a lot of questions. And I'm going to start out with a comment. And my overarching comment is, to me, the report is like comparing apples and oranges. We're not talking about the same things, even within the report itself. The scope of the buildings are very different. So there's one example of a combined senior center and something else, but the others are something different. So one thing I noted right away was staff space. There are more staff members at the senior center currently than there are allocated staff spaces in this plan. So that's a real problem. There's no separate meeting space for staff. They're going to need that, no matter what. So I don't know. That's my one comment. It's not there. I think the other thing is, I don't understand where the square footages came from. To be honest with you, that was kind of a mystery. It's, one of the things that's really important about all these is, you have two different entities occupying the same building, and who's going to manage the building? How is that going to work? That's not true. Sorry, but I know I have a little experience with that kind of thing, so that's why I'm laughing. My other question is about the gymnasium. So there was a lot of concern when the Pepin School particularly was proposed for sale by the City Council Property Committee. People were very concerned about the city reserving access to the Pepin Street Gymnasium, and it should not be included in the sale of that school. Well, that's not what happened, for whatever reason. But what I don't quite understand is the need for a gymnasium in a combined space, and why the spaces in the schools couldn't be used. And that's probably the top of my list. I have more, but I think I'm a little probably dismayed that the work that the committees have put into it just doesn't seem reflected anywhere. So
Marie?
I'd rather not take a lot of time, but I'm gonna just very briefly, I totally agree with you, Leslie, that the gymnasium thing stood out like in neon letters. We're still paying for the high school gymnasium. And if there's a demand for gymnasium activity, whether it's basketball or something else, then it should be coordinated with what the constituents are and taxpayers are already paying for. So, and then there's a whole nother section about, if I'm not mistaken, combining it with the Park and Recreation Administrative Office, like where did that come from? And I know there's current discussion that the fact that the director there is working out of a trailer and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So these pages seem to be an attempt to one size fits all the city's projects, and I feel a little bit like dismayed, I guess I will use that term, that the senior center is being thrown in with all of this in terms of future voter proposal and that kind of thing. It's overwhelming. It's just overwhelming.
Crystal, and then
So-
Kathy.
When I went to the mayor's meeting, he answered a lot of the questions that you guys are talking about. And I went to the meeting with this before this proposal was released. And what the mayor said was that he 100% believes that Easthampton needs a new senior center. He does not believe that that voters are going to pass just a senior center. So his idea was to create something that would service both older adults as well as children growing up in the community, adults that would want to utilize, maybe do a basketball league in a gym. I just know from being the president of a booster club that was a sports-related booster club, and after the high school was built, that gym space is not available. I had practices that I constantly would get bumped out of because there was a game that got rescheduled. So the gym space at the high school is not available. When we lost Pepin, I was coaching rec basketball, and that threw a huge wrench in the game. I was lucky enough that one of our basketball players' fathers worked at a private school, and we were able to practice at that private school because the father was the janitor and he opened the doors for us. So that was beneficial to us. So I can attest to the fact that we do not have enough gym space in Easthampton as a parent and a coach and a board member. And so I just want to say that. The reason that the mayor wants it to be a combined complex is because he believes that's what's going to get him an override to get this built. He believes that the seniors in Easthampton deserve their own space, and his idea presented at the meeting was that between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m., this is going to be all senior activities. Administration would be doing work in Park and Recs, but then, 5 o'clock comes around, it's after school hours. Now we can have, a men's basketball league, or we could have a women's, pickleball league or whatever. So that was how he presented it to being able to sell the idea to these taxpayers and voters in Easthampton.
Cynthia.
Thank you so much, Crystal. And I can also, if we have more time, I've spoken with the mayor about the plan and heard, I've heard different times so that like when school gets out, it would switch over. I've also heard that in the summer, if it's raining, camp would come inside, but that's very preliminary information. I wanted you to bring up the point about the garage that you had talked about. What is it like to have a garage attached to the indoor spaces?
I was concerned mainly with fumes and then with the safety aspect. Your insurance goes really high whenever your garage is attached to your house, and there are concerns there. And then also garage space, if it's in the back, what about our vehicles? is that included in this garage, in this maintenance and the ability to fuel and so forth? But I think the safety was my primary concern, and then the parking, I don't think 70 to 90 spaces is necessarily gonna be enough parking space from what's initially projected in there. I was concerned also with staffing. It appears that the Council on Aging staffing's been cut. Here it says a director and 1 or 2 senior staff, so that's a huge concern for me as well. I don't know if I answered your questions on the garage.
You did.
You know.
And then, I'm not sure how much time.
We have 4 minutes left.
Okay. All right. So some other questions. We asked, what about the veterans? He said, well, they could be on the parks side, but that's not in here. We, as a COA board, have voted that we always want the veterans with us. 85% of them are older adults. There's 500 to 700 square foot of office space for staff, plus a space for the outreach workers. So, you know, we have 10 staff total, 10 humans. Plus we have senior tax work off who need a desk and volunteer. Question about the main reception staff, if we're sharing them, are both departments paying for them? And the sort of hours would be longer, so it would cost more to the city to have longer reception. I told you about the gym classes.
Health service.
Older adults. Older adults don't want to share their cardio room, and they don't want to share their fitness classes. I feel comfortable, but these are comments that I've heard from other people. It's a different program. Indoor track around the basketball court, like they have in Long Meadow, is something that we thought the public would go for, especially since there's no mall in town to really walk around. Would the rec gym also be used for pickleball is a question. And then, okay. A couple other things. These are micro details, but the lounge can't be where you play billiards and games in a senior center. Lounge space is more like the way like a library lounge is, or maybe you have constituent hours in there with a legislator. So you need additional space. The games and pool space, billiard space that we currently use adds up to about 1,000 square feet, and that's with one pool table. And the public has been asking us to have more than one pool table. And then, you know, more comments about how it'd be lovely to have a combined program, but just to note that the building standard is 4 square foot per person age 60 plus. Many are at 2 to 4. Long Meadow's at 5 with that big gym. And we now have a chart that Leslie and I created that has the sizes of various senior centers, the year they were built, the population numbers for 60 plus, and then the coming up population of 45 to 55-ish. And we will bring that to the Senior Center Building Committee, and we'll share that with people just so they can get a sense. The current building is 2.1 square feet per the 4,778 people the US Census says we have are age 60 plus. There's probably more by now since that was done. Just so you get a sense. And yes, a new building would be better organized than the current building, but this 9-ish to 12,000-ish square footage that is in this is way less, even if you add in the gym, than 4 square feet per person. So I just wanted to put that out there. And then there was one other point that people have been bringing up to me that I may think of in a minute, just to, you know, just to consider. And also the chair of the building committee, who has seen this, had seen it before I did and had like more time to digest, said, remember, this is the mayor and it is one person and it is their concept. It's the second iteration of this concept. And as the mayor said, this is a template in a way, and it's an evolving conversation. The last piece I want you to be aware of is that as 2 departments, Parks and COA, I've taken the initiative to reach out to Parks. Let's talk. And so we are meeting as 2 departments. We're meeting after this meeting.
And then we're gonna meet after the building committee meeting, and then Parks Commission, April 8th, and they are considering this. And what they want us to know is they really wanna they wanna respect the time we're putting into looking at this and at the standalone senior center and the input we're putting into it, and they wanna, I'm sure they'll take a look at what we've come out with. We should do the same for them. We should go to their meeting, we should hear what they have to say, and then if you have anything you want me to bring to the Parks Director, questions, concerns, we have the notes, I will bring them, because what we want to know is, where do the two departments overlap in their needs? Where are we distinctly different? Oh, I know what I wanted to say.
We're out of time.
Oh, we're out of time.
Let's come in.
But we'll come back to Crystal's point about stubbing for a future adult day at some point. Okay.
Thank you all very much for taking time to read this. I'll take a motion to adjourn. Crystal, second? Deborah, second? The meeting is now adjourned.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.